crude is still priced globally in USD. So if the Naira gains strength, that means cheaper fuel for us. Expatriates that works at the refinery, their pay are priced in USD. Then we move to other commodities. Most of the clothes that we wear are imported. Is a substantial percentage of the food that we consume is imported. So all of this is USD. And generally, when you look at the quality of life, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, everything is priced globally in USD because we are not living in isolation. We are a part of a global system.
This is Souq business landscape.
The Naira strengthened to a record 1,401 Naira 22 kobo per dollar on Tuesday at the official foreign exchange market, marking its highest level since the launch of the electronic foreign exchange matching systems. Now, the appreciation reflects renewed investor confidence and strong demand for local currency. Data released by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, showed that the Naira gained 1.26% on the day, rising 17.73 Naira and at 1,418 Naira 95 kobo at the Nigerian foreign exchange market. Now, FX market participants reportedly placed bids as high as 1,400 Naira per dollar, signaling active trading and robust liquidity in the system. Analysts say the gains are driven by consistent foreign inflows, improved exports received, and supportive monetary policies from the CBN. Now, the record level underscores efforts to stabilize the Naira, boost investor sentiment, and strengthen Nigeria's position in the global financial market. Starting with you, Mukhtar, this is very, very good. But what does this mean, apart from the big CEOs and those big investors? What does it mean for the common Nigerian citizen?
In a country like ours, where 70% of our spending has a dollar component from fuel, crude is sold in USD. So that's the dollar component in it. Even though we have a domestic refinery and we are heading towards full dependence on local refinery, crude is still priced globally in USD. So if the Naira gains strength, that means cheaper fuel for us. Expatriates that works at the refinery, their pay are priced in USD. Then we move to other commodities. Most of the clothes that we wear are imported. Is a substantial percentage of the food that we consume is imported. So all of this is USD. And generally, when you look at the quality of life, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, everything is priced globally in USD because we are not living in isolation. We are a part of a global system. So if we cannot afford pharmaceutical products that is even produced within our shores, they will simply export to countries that can pay. So we just need to make sure that our currency has the value for us to be able to afford the basic necessities of life. And that is how affordable foreign exchange, stronger Naira, that is how it affects me and you. And if, for example, the value of Naira goes to about 500 Naira to a dollar, it simply means the man that earns 70,000 Naira can be able to buy times 3 of what he can buy. But that's just simply what it means, because everything, like I said, is either priced in USD or has a USD cost component.
All right, coming to you, Doctor, he mentioned crude oil, he mentioned clothing and pharmaceuticals. Are there other components? And also, do you see the Naira gaining more strength? Do you see the dollar declining against the Naira?
Well, I think listening to Bismarck recently on the recent study on the Naira, and I think he actually argued that the Naira at the moment is undervalued. And I think that was, for me, a good sign that the economy too has recovered. Because before now we're talking about valuation of the Naira. So today we're talking about the under valuation of the Naira. So what that means for me is that the basic macroeconomic indicators are getting better. So we're having inflation stable now. And so we can actually say, okay, we can determine what exact value of the Naira is. So I think we should expect really a lot to happen to the Naira in terms of strengthening. Don't also forget that, of course, we're seeing a number of activities that are beginning to happen at the start of this new year. The president just 2 days ago, yesterday, signed about 9 MOU in Turkey to bring in some more funds into the economy, because the more inflow of dollars you get into your economy, the stronger that your Naira will also become. Because, like they say, the forces of the market demand and supply. So when you're having inflow of Naira coming into your environment, then of course you have to also see that the competition, whether in the parallel market or even at the official windows, can stabilize or go a little down. But from what Tax said, one of the biggest worry that I have is that I don't think we're doing enough in terms even of domestic production of crude, because we're having people getting interested in the oil refining sector right now. Dangote is expanding. Boa is trying to put in money into that space. There are a lot of local modular refineries here and there that are working. NNPC is trying to see what they can do, whether to build a new line or just to repair the one they have. When all this happens, which means, of course, again, we have to import crude oil, then that would mean a whole lot for the Naira again, because people will now be looking for ways to source this dollar, and then, of course, you have to find a way to devalue your currency. These are issues that, of course, our government must find a way to do, and I don't think that it's impossible for us to do 3 million barrels of crude a day in Nigeria. I don't think it's something that is out of reach, and we just need to get a lot of people investing in that upstream and see how we can produce more crude. And then, of course, if it gets to that point, like, of course, started with this regime, where you have to do cash Naira swap, it will make a whole lot of things in stabilizing the value of the Naira. But then, of course, when you have Naira having this declining value, again, for the average man on the street, is a plus for him. Like Mukhtar said, you can have more disposable income in your hand. And then, of course, prices of goods and services is coming down. And then those who work, who currently are the victim of the global economic crisis, will now begin to feel some measure of relief, because almost everything increases except salary that had to increase at a certain point in time. So salary earners are the worst hit. So once you find the value of Naira declining, of course, it also will put more money in the pockets of salary earners.
All right, so let's look at the global scene. With Trump's eye on Venezuelan oil and, trying to do what he's trying to do, there were fears that if he gets his way, the oil from there coming from Venezuela might crash the market. Do you think that would also affect us in any way? And the dollar, and the Naira, rather?
I think people should understand that Donald Trump is actually not too much interested in oil coming from Venezuela, as people suggest. The truth of the matter is that since the day of Chavez in Yugoslavia, Yugoslavia has actually wasted their natural resources. Their life actually had been unbearable for the people who live in Venezuela. Now, I have a friend who stays in Venezuela. Some year ago, 5 years ago, thereabout, he told me they have to queue to buy a cup of rice. Inflation was about 3% in Venezuela. And yet they are so rich in oil. And what pressure that made was that people were literally walking out of Venezuela with their leg, maybe with a mat in their hand, because it was so bad for them. And you imagine that in such a situation, and you still have a regime that is so high-handed and is trying to pull people down. And because of their links and all this, and they are reaching out from the oil, you're not allowing investors to come in to put money and help you develop your country. So what Donald Trump is actually about is to see how Venezuela can use their resources to cater for their own citizens and make more money for Venezuela than actually using it to determine what price will be in the international state. And I think that is what it is, because the more pressure you have from a poor nation, the worse you become. And people must understand that if Donald Trump is thinking American for the Americans, or America becoming great again, the influx of people from the south of America, or even the north of America, entering into America will put pressure on the domestic policy of America. So why not make the environment governable and stable so that they can stay in their place in peace, and then we can have our peace in America? I think we must see it from that point of view.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Mokhtar, lastly, one of the things people have always complained about affecting the Naira is borrowing. When we go borrow from the external, outside rather, from World Bank and the rest of them, and of course, these things come in dollars and the strangest conditions. Do you see, yes, the government is looking into bonds at the moment, to reduce external borrowing, but do you see us, stopping it, or do you see what's the way out?
I'm an advocate for borrowing when it's necessary. Okay. The most important thing is, what are you doing with the money when it comes? We are trying to build a $1 trillion economy. We are barely around 300 million. How do we get there? We need to stimulate the economy. And while we are stimulating the economy, we need to take care of the people. The people don't simply just starve to death because we don't want to borrow. So I'm not saying we should borrow to feed, but we need money. For example, down the line today, we're going to be talking about power. Experts have analyzed that Nigeria needs at least $100 billion to fix our power problem. Today, as at last year's data, our revenue stand at about 16 billion, 18 billion a year. So if we need 100 billion to fix power, if you ask me if we can actually monitor every single cent of that money to deliver stable electricity, I say is what to borrow if our economy is big enough to take $100 billion loan. It is how we deploy it, because if we have a stable electricity, the economy, nobody can even predict the potential of what we can do in 1 year, in 2 years, with a stable electricity, in terms of human capacity, in terms of production, etc. So Japan is the 4th biggest economy in the world, yet they are the most indebted country in the whole world. America...
But they are very industrious.
Exactly. So debt is not the problem. The productivity is the problem. I dare say there's nobody that is more indebted than Dangote, yet is the richest black man in the world. So the debt is not the problem. The debt is not why the Naira value is where it is. Okay. It's our lack of productivity. And we can see the Naira gaining strength because there are deliberate efforts for us to be productive. First, we have the single train largest refinery in the world, Nigeria becoming the net exporter of Jet A1 fuel into America. You see all these little things is how the Naira is gaining strength. We're about to build aircraft maintenance plants in Nigeria. Not only is the aviation industry going to keep some of their FX within the country, we can attract FX from other neighboring African countries within the sub-region. So those are the things that will give the Naira the value. Shell is talking about 20 billion investment in the upstream sector. So if Nigeria borrows money, for example, to stabilize the Northeast, and Shell can go into the basin of Lake Chad to exploit oil, I say that's a good investment, because if there's stability in that sector, let's say Nigeria takes $5 billion, and that guarantees safety and peace in the Northeast, and Shell goes there and invests $30-40 billion in the upstream to extractor. I say that's a good investment because your 5 billion has bring in 30-40 billion. Not only is the money coming in, then there goes job. People within that region is employed. Then the products they are extracting from the earth is now being exported. That's more FX coming in. So it is what we do with the borrowing that matters, is not the borrowing itself. America as well is hugely indebted beyond even their macro policy, and they are still the biggest economy in the world.
So in one word, do you see the Naira dropping to 1,500?
I'll say 800.
800.
If we can adequately implement all our policies surrounding production and importation, and as Nigerian, if we can control our consumption to consume what we produce locally, we'll be at 800.
All right.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
think just to speak to that, Bismarck actually put it at 1,200, 1,257 as the what it feels will be the appropriate value of the Naira at the
Currently
moment.
now.
Currently. So which means, of course, the potential of it actually going down is high if we put all this in place. But there's something also we must give to the economic managers today, is the fact that the style of our borrowing has also changed. The government is not going to commercial bank to go take loan at very exorbitant rates. We must also commend them for that. You see, one thing that a lot of us as Nigerians, we don't appreciate is we don't look at the size of our bureaucracy, how massive it is to even maintain in the first place. Take, for example, we have over 1,000 agencies in Nigeria. Every agency has a CEO, and they have directors, assistant directors, and staff under them. And now, these are structured that, of course, were put in place during the oil boom. And don't forget that we have not been able to even implement your Rosai report. So when you look at what we currently earn, vis-a-vis the overhead of government, you discover that we will still have to borrow if the state must run. That's very important. But now that we are not going to ways and means of just printing currencies, and we are not going to commercial bank to take loan, and government is even moderating borrowing from lending organizations like the Brent Rewards. And I think there are things that are commendable. That if we are selling bond, we're doing treasury to be able to raise money both locally and outside, which means you can predict what your rate will be for a given period of time, and that helps you to actually manage. People don't understand the gap that exists in this country in terms of meeting our infrastructure need. Augusto put it that for us to be able to fill that gap, we need to spend between 80 to 150 billion annually. US dollar annually for a period of 30 years to fix the infrastructure gap in Nigeria, and that's massive. So you don't want to build a state like that looks like Qatar or like Turkey or like UAE or like the Europeans, and then of course you say, oh, you don't want to borrow. If you have to do it necessarily, you will have to definitely borrow. Look at it. After the Second World War, America implemented the Marshall Plan that built Europe. It was not what they were earning. Massive money and borrowing came from the outside to help build Europe after the Marshall Plan. So those things you see in Europe today are things that were done through the debt. So, but like he said, I believe that we must also be thinking, putting money in areas where we can have some comparative advantage in terms of what we can also sell and earn more money, and then we are able to repay. PPP is also a way to go for us as a country. Our road infrastructure, for example, we have to look out for people who are good enough to be able to help us. I don't even see Nigeria putting money in power, for example. There are countries who have resources, who have also perfected the technology of driving this energy. And then we can call them in, and then they put in money. And then we see that the energy problem is solved once and for all. Yes, people talk about energy security issue, but I don't see it that way. I just feel that people just want to see electricity. Now that we cannot solve it, then we can momentarily ask other people who have the capacity to do it for us, and then they execute it, and after a while, it can be build, transfer, and operate and transfer. And at the end of the day, we are better for it. Businesses are better for it. But it's also good to know that today they said the pricing of solar and the conventional energy is at the advantage of solar right now is cheaper in Nigeria, and which of course again is a beautiful development. And if we leverage some of all these things with foreign investors putting money in this area, it will also reduce the amount of things that we are going to borrow. But if we must survive, I tell you, we have to borrow.